Have you ever noticed how some of the oldest stories seem to start the exact same way? Well, today we're going to dive into one of the most repeated sentences in ancient literature. And hidden inside is a story of intense human drama, unbelievable devotion, and a secret that's been hiding in plain sight for thousands of years.
It's a really strange literary puzzle when you think about it, right? I mean, imagine picking up 1,000 different books and discovering they all begin with the very same phrase. This is no coincidence. It's a code. And today, we're going to crack it.
So this is it. Thus have I heard. At one time, the Buddha was staying in Savatthi. This is the standard opening for countless Buddha sutras. Now, on the surface, it just looks like a simple introduction, setting the scene. But, and this is the key, every single word here is absolutely packed with meaning.
See, this isn't just a sentence, it's a formal structure, a kind of formula known as the 6 accomplishments. The easiest way to think of it is like the opening of a modern news report. It's designed to give you the who, what, when, and where right up front to establish complete credibility before a single word of the teaching is even shared.
Okay, so let's pull this apart piece by piece. Thus establishes faith. This is true. I heard confirms it's a direct first-hand account. At one time, locks it into a real historical moment. Then you get the teacher, the Buddha, the place, Jeta Grove, and the audience. It's like a checklist to verify everything. But that leads to a huge question, right? Why go to such lengths? Why was this level of proof so critical? Well, the answer isn't in a rule book. It's in the human drama behind the words.
So we've got the what of the sentence down. Now let's get into the who and the why, which is where this story gets really interesting. Because these words weren't cooked up by a committee. They were first spoken by a man named Ānanda, the Buddhist cousin and loyal attendant, at what was probably the lowest point of his entire life. Okay, so picture this. The Buddha has just passed away. It is a critical moment. You have 500 of his enlightened disciples, we're talking the greatest minds of a generation, gathering in a cave. Their mission is to preserve every single teaching before it gets lost to time. But there's a huge problem. The one person they absolutely need, Ānanda, the man with the perfect photographic memory, he's been barred from entry. He's locked out. Can you just imagine the crushing weight of those words? The head monk, Kashyapa, publicly denies him, and his reason was a big one. You see, while Ānanda's memory was perfect, he hadn't yet achieved enlightenment. In Kashyapa's eyes, he was still spiritually impure and not qualified for this sacred task. Talk about holding someone to a high standard. And then, to make matters worse, Kashyapa lays out 6 specific charges against him, 6 supposed failures. Things from advocating for women to join the order all the way down to accidentally stepping on the Buddha's robe. It was a total public shaming. Ānanda was forced to confess in front of everyone, and then he was cast out. So, Ānanda is devastated, but he's also determined. He spends the entire night in meditation, pushing himself to his absolute limit. But here's the amazing part. His awakening didn't happen when he was straining and trying so hard. It came in the split second he finally gave up. The moment he let go of all that effort to lie down and rest. In that single moment of total release, he became fully enlightened. And how does he return to the cave? He doesn't just knock on the door. The story goes that he used his new spiritual powers to pass directly through the rock wall, appearing right in front of the astonished assembly. So his trial was over, his purity was proven, but his dramatic arrival created a brand new, totally unexpected problem. I mean, think about it. The one guy they needed is finally here, and he's enlightened. The mission can finally begin, right? Wrong. His presence, which was now supposedly radiant with enlightenment, sparked a deep and profound confusion among all the other monks. They looked at him, and they could no longer tell him apart from their master. Their minds were racing. Had the Buddha come back to life? Was this some other Buddha from a different universe? Or had Ānanda himself become a Buddha? The whole project just ground to a halt because they didn't know who was about to speak to them. So every eye in the cave is on him. The fate of the entire Buddhist canon, everything they've ever learned, is resting on his very next words. He has to prove who he is and who he isn't, all at the same time. And with 4 simple words, he shatters all 3 doubts. Thus have I heard. Just like that, the phrase "I heard" proved he wasn't the Buddha, he was the disciple who had listened. And the word "thus" affirmed that what he was about to say was the faithful, unchanged teaching.
It was the perfect solution, a seal of authenticity created in that very moment of crisis. All right, so we've solved the mystery of the speaker and the words. But what about the place mentioned in that opening line, Jada Grove? Well, this isn't just some random location. It has its own incredible story of devotion.
The story really involves two men. On one hand, you have Prince Jeta, who owned a stunningly beautiful park. And on the other, you have Sudatta, a super wealthy and compassionate merchant. His nickname was actually Anāthapiṇḍika, which means feeder of the poor. Sudatta wanted to build a monastery for the Buddha, and he knew the prince's park was the absolute perfect spot.
But Prince Jeta had no intention of selling. So to get rid of Sudatta, he quoted a completely absurd price. He said he would only sell the land for the amount of gold it would take to literally cover the entire surface of the park. He thought that would be the end of it. He was very, very wrong.
Because Sudatta just starts showing up with cartloads of gold and begins paving the park with it. Seeing this unbelievable act of pure devotion, Prince Jeta was so moved that he stopped him. He accepted the gold for the land, but he insisted on donating all the beautiful trees himself. And that's why the place was named in honor of both of their contributions.
So we've explored the speaker, the words, and the place. But there's one final layer of meaning to uncover here, and it might just be the most profound of all. And you don't find it in a grand statement, but in the description of a perfectly ordinary day.
Right before one of the most important teachings in all of Buddhism, this is what's described. Not a miracle, not a divine vision, but a simple routine. The Buddha gets dressed, walks into town, gets some food, eats, cleans up, and sits down. So you gotta ask, why include such mundane, boring details?
It's because it demonstrates a core principle, an idea known in some traditions as kasandori. And it's the idea that the path to enlightenment isn't separate from our lives. The deepest truths are woven right into the simple, everyday acts of living and eating and sitting. The stage for the ultimate teaching was a completely ordinary moment. So the final takeaway is this: that ancient opening line does way more than just verify a historical event. It reminds us that the most sacred moments are often disguised as the most ordinary ones. Which leaves us with a question to think about. If the path to enlightenment can begin with just putting on a robe and taking a walk, what truths might be waiting for you in your own daily life?